I pretty much only applied to places with marching band because actually in high school I didn't do it my freshman year, and then when I did it the other 3 years, it was like, why did I waste so much time not being in marching band? So I couldn't really imagine life without that, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do in terms of major at the time, and so I knew if I did marching band it'd be an extracurricular activity that I could always do no matter what. And then, as the directors have their ways, they see everyone who did band in high school who's coming to UVA and just contact you. And I knew a couple other people from my year in high school that came here to do band as well. So it was just kind of an easy transition. Just knew I wanted to do it and found it pretty easily. My junior year at one of our high school marching competitions, I guess the CMB had done some sort of exhibition, and I saw, the thing that sticks out in my memory about this is they had a few trumpet players come up and do Flight of the Bumblebee, I think it was, and it was just extraordinarily epic seeing them toss it around, super fast, super high, loud. It was crazy compared to my 70-person high school band. So it was something that I saw pretty early on and knew and remembered. And there were a couple people that when I got here, my first year, had been there during that experience, and so it's kind of a neat connection. I think it's very similar for a lot of people in that when you come here, it can kind of be overwhelming in terms of how big it is and how much you have to do and how much there is going on, and so it was really nice knowing people going into it. There weren't a lot of people in band in my dorm, or I didn't really get all that close because of we didn't have hall style where I lived. We did suite style, and so it's kind of separate and on your own, and so it was nice to have band friends that I could go hang out with and knew on day one. And you'd see people walking around, whether they were first years or people in your section who were older. So it very much was just a good foundation right at the start for knowing people and feeling comfortable at UVA. And it always kind of took precedence in everything, I think. If I had to pick one activity that was going to take charge, if I had to choose between things, it was always marching band, basketball band, etc. It was, just kind of my foundation and what I love doing the most. Both coming into the CMB and actually after first year, I was thinking about doing the pit, so the front ensemble, just because I had actually done drumline in high school in the winter season and really liked that, and kind of didn't think I fit in with the trumpet dynamic in the sense that I'm a little quieter and reserved. So I don't know, it had always crossed my mind, but ended up just sticking with it because I knew a lot of people in the section coming in, and actually my section leader first year, Celeste Walker, had gone to middle school with me, so she kind of was that little click for first year, okay, I'll do trumpet. But yeah, I guess that's kind of a random factoid. There were kind of two bigger reasons that I wanted to be drum major. One was kind of more music related. I decided that I really wanted to do a career in music, and I still do. I'd love to be a conductor someday, and so the path through marching band to do conducting is to be the drum major, and so I thought that'd be a really good experience for me in terms of learning and also just something that I would feel comfortable doing. And then the other big reason is just that I wanted to see the band grow more, and I don't know, I'm one of those people who just has a ton of ideas, and it's always harder to implement them when you get in because you see why things are done the way they are. But it's something where I was I have thoughts about this, and I want to make it happen and want to see the band continue to grow and do better and better each year. And seeing people who are older than me, people like Shantira Higgins immediately comes to mind, or Abby Hyder, just people like that who really inspired the band and pushed me. Just kind of wanted to do the same for other people. I actually auditioned for drum major twice, and the auditions were very different, or fairly different at least. The first time, I had to end up singing the national anthem, which is not something. It's oh God, I have to remember the words to this, let alone sing it in tune. But then the second time, it was kind of more, I don't know, it seemed more relaxed, maybe just because I had done it once before. But it was kind of get with the group and we're gonna read excerpts to try and talk about leadership and see how comfortable you are in front of a group and test your musical ability and stuff like that. But it just felt a lot more I think I'm ready for this now. And so the second time around it was much more calm, and I felt I knew what I was doing, I guess. But each time it was definitely kind of a surprise in a sense. both times going in front of the concert band conducting, it's different each time. You still get a rush no matter what, no matter how many times you practice in front of a mirror, how well you know the score. So it was an exciting process and scary the first time and more just kind of like fun and get into it the second time, I'd have to say. It was an interesting dynamic because, I actually only really knew Stephanie Bell the most through KK Psi. We were both in that. And I think Carissa and Cameron knew each other really well through, because they were in school, they did schoolwork a lot through engineering. And so it was really interesting how we as the two new people just kind of knew the two returners. And Stephanie and Cameron both definitely took the lead in band camp and in the summer kind of preparing for it. But I'd say pretty quickly it dissolved down to where we all knew what we were doing, and we could all equally feel like we were contributing. But it was just we were learning the salute for halftime and then the salute for pregame, and it's kind of turn to Stephanie and Cameron and just say, what do we do for this? Or how do we know which podium to use, et cetera, et cetera. But very quickly you catch on, and it just becomes all four of us knowing what we're doing. A lot of good memories came out of this past summer. The four drum majors were all here in Charlottesville. We all worked on the summer camp together, so I feel that was a lot of good bonding that happened, just getting to know each other a lot better. Riding around in the Gator for the first time was really cool. Got a lot of photo shoot pictures out of that. But I don't know, just a lot of good random times with these people, and I kind of felt nervous going in because I didn't really know Carissa or Cameron at all. I was I don't know how I'm going to mesh with these people, but it just really clicked throughout the whole season and really right away. So I don't know, just had a lot of good random memories at band camp, staying up super late. At least we didn't have to do the Who's News this year, which was kind of a blessing. Thank God for ABJ taking care of that. But I don't know, just kind of doing everything together and becoming best friends with these three people. Generally, with this last season as drum major, it was a big balancing act between being a student and performer, I guess, but also being sort of on the staff, in the sense that we were at all the staff meetings, and the directors and everyone else treated us sort of like staff. And so it was kind of seeing those two groups, knowing what the students want, but the directors know what works and what doesn't work because they've been doing this for a while, and so kind of finding that median. And it's always really hard to be able to tell your peers no on things, or to kind of stand up to the directors and say, well, I think we should do it this way instead because blah blah blah. So that was kind of a big challenge, and definitely just getting a lot of random tasks this year. We ended up staying at the band building until 2 a.m. after Paint the Town Orange, I think it was, just laminating books for the next game, which needed to be done, but it also just seemed why are we doing this now? So it all kind of worked out, and somehow these things turned into more bonding moments and memories, but it was a challenge at the time, and you always wonder why do I have to be doing this, and why is it this way? But it's always kind of for a good reason. And that's definitely true for a lot of different things throughout my first 3 years too. And I guess the one big challenging moment was actually first year when I applied for leadership and didn't get the position that I wanted, and I kind of had a fit over it, and it was not a pretty scene, but just kind of took the director's advice, mostly Dr. Pease. He was actually my major advisor, so we kind of talked a little bit about it too. His advice, and just stay my ground, saw okay, librarian, we can make the most of this, and it turned out to be a good position for me in terms of growing and just knowing how the band works. So taking everything in stride and seeing that there's a reason behind everything. A lot of the things are definitely the shows. Obviously it's kind of a rush, and it's a lot of fun music. I loved a lot of what we did, and it was a challenge always. I felt like the band got better and better each year, and so we did harder and harder things, and it was always just super impressive. Probably my favorite memory is definitely conducting in front of the Herald Trumpets, I'd have to say, because I was lead conductor on that, and also as a trumpet player, it was kind of a really special moment for me. Their conductor was watching me and following me and doing what I was doing, which was really cool to just be a part of that and have a ton of music from them and from the whole 330-piece group coming right at you. So it's definitely something. But I'll always remember a lot of the times like performing as well. So like my first show, first year, British Invasion, that was what we did. And so for Bohemian Rhapsody, for the last tune, we ended up just like leaving a field and going on the sideline right in front of the student section, just playing our hearts out right there. And it was a really cool experience being able to do that. It was kind of like, this is, a college marching band, something that's for entertainment and not for a score. And then you get away from the performing part of it, and a lot of it's just friendships that you made. It's definitely band camp first year. I think we were kind of one of those weird classes that decided we were going to hang out as a class instead of as a section. Apparently that was not normally done, but after mandatory fun, so it was like 11:30 already. We all went down to the Promenade Ballroom and just got together, and I met people who were in the baritone section and the people who were in the flute section, and a couple of those people are my best friends now, and a couple of them are going to be my roommates this year. So even though you get really close to your section, definitely it was really good to know that I got along with like my first year class, and those random bonding moments are things that I cherish. In the skit this past year, we were the 4 drum majors. We were all kind of deciding at bowling night, so the night before skit night, what we were going to do, and stressing over it, probably more than we should have, but ended up coming up with something that we thought was pretty funny, and occasionally people would laugh at what we said, and occasionally we would just have to laugh at ourselves. But it was great to see the 4 of us just kind of come together and do something that we thought that we were proud of, but also just to be a little silly and have fun. And that's kind of what those band camp games are all about. People go serious and go hard with it, but it's also just supposed to be fun and good bonding. So that's definitely one of my favorite memories. Just going forward on skit night, like I'm not normally one to be up in front of the crowd, kind of in terms of acting and skits like that, but it was a fun experience. Basically, like each section would come up to do their skit, and so before it, we basically had sort of like an inside joke about announcing that section. And so the first one that comes to my head, which I feel really bad about, but we purposely didn't announce the baritone section because they're always told that they're like the forgotten ones. And so like we didn't, and we were like, okay, and here's the results from skit night, and then kind of like 10 seconds later, like, oh yeah, and the baritones. So just kind of jokes like that, and then like the trumpets being cocky or the flutes being sassy and girly and stuff, and just inside jokes that other people would laugh at, that could be passable. I'd say British Invasion was definitely my favorite show. I think part of it, we had some really good music and good visuals that I can remember too, but also just the fact that it was my first show, and so it kind of has like a place in my mind. I really liked Earth, Wind, and Fire, which was the first show of my second year. And then there are a lot of like quirky things that we did here or there, just the visuals in the boy band show, or like the stick figure show that we did this year with Evolution of Dance. So things like that really stick out. But if I were to pick one show, it'd be British Invasion. For the Evolution of Dance show, for that particular sequence, I wasn't conducting and I wasn't performing, obviously, so it was kind of just like I got to be on the sideline and watch the Who Vision, the Jumbotron, and just see all the stick figures work, and it's really cool to see it just happen like that, because you're on the field and you can't really tell what's going on around you, but to see it so much bigger than that, it felt like a really powerful accomplishment that we were able to do all that. And in terms of visual, it's really stupid, but it was fun at the time. During the British Invasion show for Uprising, we had this like triangle move with our trumpets, and then we did the Heisman. It was just like really strong and flashy, just kind of like quick, powerful thing. And I don't know why I remember it, but each time when we play that in basketball band, like there are a couple of us that still do it. It was actually one that I wasn't at. It was an away game, and it was my second year, so 2011. When UVA played FSU. It was a very close game. I think it was pretty much tied down to the end of it, and then there were a lot of like foul calls to the point where the game was pretty much called over like 3 separate times because they had to replay things. And so I was at a retreat with KKSI. We had gathered around the single computer monitor that we could get to work with like internet streaming, just like all gathered around to watch it. And it was a really good moment, both in terms of like brotherhood bonding, but also just like, Wahoo pride, in the sense that, we had won something and we haven't, beaten FSU too many times. So that was definitely kind of a big football moment. I don't know. And then the bowl game as well was obviously a big thing my second year also. Just getting to go down there and meet another band and then be in this humongous stadium and kind of compete with Auburn's band and see our team go back and forth, at least for the first half, and get to perform on a field like that. I mean, it was pretty incredible. Mr. Idzier, he was here for my first 2 years. So I'd say I got to know him pretty well, mostly just through the CMB, but also like we were in one ensemble together, and then I went on the band trip to Costa Rica after my first year, so that was kind of a side bonding moment with all the directors. But I'd say I know him pretty well. Like he came back for this band directors conference, or stopped by at least, and I was able to say hi. So we're friends and we'll say hi to each other and keep up, but definitely it's been hard. I haven't seen him in 2 years just like regularly, so it's kind of a different relationship, but still a positive one. He always tried to get to know people in the CMB, had a very like friend relationship, I'd say. I definitely think I got to know Mr. Cook the most because he sat next to me pretty much for all of wind ensemble in the trumpet section, and one semester I took lessons with him and kind of everything from a little bit of trumpet to conducting to how to be a band director, just getting a lot of his knowledge about that. It's really fascinating all that he's done throughout his career and what he thinks about the band. And I think he can come across as like the most stringent of the band directors, but it's really evident when you talk to him and when you see him talk to especially prospective students, how much he really loves the band and all of its members and like how much he wants to put into it. So I definitely say I got to know him the most, or the closest. Mr. Costin, he was here my last 2 years. And it's been kind of a different journey. He has become the KKSI sponsor this year, and so I saw him occasionally through that role, but mostly just through the band director role, doing a lot of Olympic sports and basketball band and kind of like helping out around, especially as drum major, like you're at the band building a lot, doing that kind of stuff. So I don't know, I have a pretty good relationship, I'd say, with him. I think he knows he can depend on me, and so we've always had just kind of a friend relationship. He stopped by the music office yesterday and we just chatted up for a little while. So he's it's kind of a weird like peer but also band director relationship, kind of similar to how I saw Mr. Idzier. And then Dr. Pease, I mean, he's definitely, like, everyone calls him the big teddy bear, and he is. He's been kind of big mentor to me, and always been kind of a sense of positive energy, I'd say, in that he's always concerned, but in a good way, not like worried about me, but like how can I help you kind of way. Just because he was my music advisor and saw that I wanted to do conducting and band directing possibly down the line, and wanted to make sure that I could succeed and get there however possible. So he was always kind of there for me, a little bit in the background. I think he likes to sit back sometimes and let things happen, but he's always kind of been a really good source, just of knowledge, of passion, of positive energy, someone that I know I can go to for anything. Like I said before, we're always just kind of growing in terms of, I think, the drill sets that we did my first year were a lot of boxes and lines, and even though that still happens sometimes, I feel like we're constantly being pushed to do new things. And obviously the size of the band has grown. My first year I think it was about 270, and now it's like 330. And then a big change for the band was the band building after my first year, so I had 1 year without it, and just moving away from U-Haul practices and meeting at the cage for various things or rehearsing in the parking garage to actually having a good space for it. I think it really helped the band kind of solidify and have a place where we could call our own. But I don't know, I think the people have always been there, I'd say. I don't know, people are changing, but I think everyone that's come into the UVA band, at least in the 4 years that I've been here, they're all very passionate and dedicated, and want to see the band succeed. So that dynamic has always been consistent. It's just happening, stronger and stronger, I'd say.